Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. I'm your host, Anuj Agarwal, and today we'll be talking with Jeff Pedowitz. Jeff is a pioneering leader in revenue operations, transforming the way businesses approach marketing and customer engagement. As the president and CEO of the Pedowitz Group, TPG, Jeff has dedicated his career to turning marketing teams from perceived cost centers into dynamic profit centers that drive growth and innovation. Additionally, Jeff is a member and contributing author at the Forbes Business Council, further solidifying his influence and thought leadership in the industry. Author of the influential book F the Funnel, The New Way to Engage Customers and Grow Revenue, Jeff challenges the traditional funnel based marketing approach, advocating for a more holistic, customer centric model. His philosophy emphasizes the integration of digital transformation, business accountability, and advanced marketing technology to achieve sustained revenue growth. Under Jeff's visionary leadership, the Pedowitz Group has built an unparalleled reputation in the marketing community, working with over 1,500 clients, including Fortune 500 companies and leading global brands. TPG's innovative strategies have resulted in more than $25 billion in marketing sourced and influenced revenue, demonstrating their effectiveness through over 10,000 successful campaigns that foster strong, lasting relationships between brands and their customers. With a robust team spread across 24 states, TPG continues to excel in driving business outcomes and setting new standards in marketing excellence. Jeff's commitment to reshaping the industry has made him a respected thought leader and a catalyst for change in the marketing world. Welcome, Jeff.
Wow, Mahesh, thank you. That was that's a little bit humbling listening to all that.
Yeah, well, it sometimes is strange when somebody else repeats the life story in front of us, right? It goes by fast. But I will want to reiterate this and hear from your perspective. How has this journey been? How did you get started in this? And how did you end up making such a big impact on the industry? Like 25 billion is huge, huge number.
I mean, I would say I've always been entrepreneurial and I've always had a love for technology, for business, for sales and marketing. Uh, I think I was 12 when I got my first computer. It was a Commodore 64. And then my best friend had a TRS-80 and we taught ourselves how to program. And through my teenage years, I spent a lot of time working in restaurants and that really instilled an early understanding of operations, discipline, process, cost control. And my first job, if you will, wasn't actually a job at all. I ended up owning and operating a Subway store with my father. And we ended up developing 3 territories in New Jersey. And we went on over 7 years to develop a territory that had 35 stores in it that we managed and owned and operated. And so I did all that before I even got into tech. All those years with franchises and systems and process and controls, I think just really kind of got that rigor in. And then this was now, I don't know, I guess mid to late 90s, and things were starting to take off with the internet and .coms. And all my friends but one were in technology.
Okay.
So my best friend was in the restaurant business with me, but everybody, so they'd make fun of me all the time. You know, it's like, you're gonna make sandwiches for the rest of your life. My wife would always make me, but as you know, we were poor back then. We had a condo, and I'd come back smelling like tuna fish and onions and all that. So she'd always make me take my stuff off at the door. I'm like, yeah, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna make sandwiches for the rest of my life? So I actually went back to school, picked up a programming degree, and then I went applying for jobs. And I thought, after being a successful owner and territory manager for 7 years, I was going to just go into a software company and walk into the corner office. And no, it didn't quite work out that way. I was fortunate to get a great job at Computer Associates, but I did have to start off at the bottom. So I started off working in quality assurance. So after all that time being my own boss, now I was kind of like low man on the totem pole. But I think as luck had it, the software product that I was assigned to is called Manufacturing Knowledge. which
Okay.
was an ERP platform competitor with SAP and several others. And so after all those years in the restaurant business, ERP and supply chain came very naturally to me. And so I actually picked things up really quickly. I ended up getting promoted 3 times in 1 year. So
Oh, wow.
at the end of my first year at Computer Associates, I ended up moving into the consulting group and running the professional services division for that product. And so that's when I really discovered my love of consulting and working with businesses and helping them solve problems and managing teams. And then from there, I went on to work at a couple different companies, started progressing, bouncing around, became a VP of marketing, became head of services. And then in the early 2000s, I was working at a company called SalesNet, which was an early competitor of Salesforce. And I love SalesNet because they had a great platform for automating sales process inside technology, and they work with sales trainers. So these were things that, again, I really love to do. And then right around 2004, I was also one of the managers that was in charge of the channel program. So we were trying to figure out how to generate leads for the resellers and find distributors. And we ended up getting Eloqua. And so we were one of the first companies to buy Eloqua at the time. And I fell in love. This was like the sky opening, and I just, wow, this is everything I ever wanted. It's process, it's marketing, it's technology, it's software. I get to help all these businesses, and so I ended up going to work at Eloqua, and I became their first director of professional services. And I was employee 32, 33 at the time for Eloqua, so it was really exciting. Got into the startup world and did that. And those early years, our team and myself, we were creating a lot of IP that the world takes for standard today. So we came up with the concept of lead scoring. This was not even in the world's lexicon prior to 2005. This is something that we made up, and we developed a lot of best practices around digital marketing and demand gen. And I started training some of the early partners and watching them have outstanding success and growing their business with IP that my team and myself were creating. And a light bulb went off and said, "Hey, wait a minute! I think I can do that." So I talked to my wife about hanging up a shingle, and she said yes, under one condition, that we do it together. So
Okay.
Yeah, so we started in 2007, which that in of itself was interesting because we had just moved into our dream house, and of course that was right when the housing market started to crash and the world was falling apart, and we might have had 2 months of savings total in the bank. And our neighbors at us like, "This is crazy. Who quit? Who leaves their job? Who ends up starting a business as the economy's downturning? You're going to be out in grass." So, basically working without a net, 3 kids, just bootstrapping, right? Just trying to kind of figure it out. And in the beginning, honestly, my wife's and I goals were very modest. Right? Okay, at that time, it might have been in software for about 8, 9 years, 10 years. And I was traveling all the time. I was on the road like, hey, maybe I could just find clients in Atlanta, get off the road, learn how to play golf because I never had time to do that either. And go from there. But the business really took off. And within 1 month, had to hire our first employee.
Nice.
And good friend of mine that she was one of the early clients at Eloqua, Dr. Debbie Gagish. I was helping her trying to find a new CMO job. She was bringing me some clients, people she knew, and we just hit it off really well. So Sheree and I asked her to become our partner. And so Deb's been with us too since the early ages.
Oh, wow.
So then from there, things started to take off. And that's really how we got started. In the beginning, it's throwing a lot of things at the wall and figuring out what's going to stick, what people are going to buy. And even though I had a lot of experience running a franchise and I understood consulting, when you're doing it for yourself and you're trying to put food on the table and sell and figure things out and still ideating, at that time, the Waterfall and Serious Decisions, they had just started right around the same time, maybe a year earlier. So these things were not household names yet. So there's a lot of figuring things, how they were going to work. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey since then.
That's amazing. So tell me one thing, obviously you have a huge breadth of experience in restaurant industry and software industry, but you ended up focused on consulting and marketing and helping businesses. And now you are heavily into even advanced technologies like AI. what is how have you seen the transition of business landscape? Because business traditionally is about people, about relationships. And how do you uh, add technology to the mix, which is like quite uh, separate from people? And even today when we hear about AI, like people are kind of wary about it. They're like, okay, it's going to replace jobs. Yet here you are making a huge success by mixing this people business with technology. How has been that transition, and how what is the progression of this mix? Have you
Yeah, no,
seen?
that's a great question. I would say, throughout all the 17 years, we've certainly seen a lot of. I mean, the smartphone only came out the first year we started, and there were
Yeah,
Blackberries and other
yeah,
devices back then. A
yeah.
lot of change in technology since we started our business. No matter what the platform was, though, whether it's AI now, whether it was marketing automation when we first started, or social, or video, or anything along the way,
Mhm.
90% of businesses still make the same mistake, which is they start with technology and then
Yeah,
drive strategy from that. They do forget about their customers, the relationships, and what is the right strategy, and then how do you use technology to scale. And so that's one of the biggest issues we're constantly trying to address. Oh, I bought ABM platform, so now I'm doing ABM. I bought marketing automation or CRM, so now I'm doing those things. No, you're not. You had the technology, but there hasn't been a lot of thought into rethinking the process, the personnel, the new ways of operating, new KPIs. So that's really, we try and focus heavily on getting our clients back to focusing on those relationships. And that first book that you mentioned that I wrote, F the Funnel, really zeroes in on that. Is that the funnel is it's important. I mean, I understand we need to forecast as a business and have responsibilities and stuff, but it is artificial, and it's really about us as a company, about what we need. It doesn't really have anything to do with the customer. And so trying to advocate more towards an integrated model where we view the customer as a partner, and then we're trying to build those relationships, and then how do we use technology?
Mhm.
AI in some ways is evoking, to your point, the same fears, concerns, anxieties as all this tech has over the last 20 years. I remember when email first came out and the internet, the direct mail industry is going to be dead, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
uh, digital started rising. That's going to be the death of traditional broadband media. No one's going to do billboards anymore, television commercials, or radio. It gets a little overhyped, and I guess it's easier for the media to promote the drama.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean, though, that things don't change. I mean, marketers today are using different skills and techniques and channels than they were 20 or 30 years ago. So AI will have an impact. I mean, at least for some of the lower um, impact jobs, the repetitive jobs, the task things, the data, and some of those things, it makes complete sense for AI to be able to take those things. But AI in and of itself has no emotive context. It can't create by itself. It doesn't
Mhm.
understand human context and condition. It can't read body language. It's an impersonal thing that you're typing.
Mhm. Mhm.
It still doesn't really understand the human condition, no matter how much it's been trained to. So there's always going to be a need,
Mhm.
for marketers to be able to have that strategy, understand the go to market. Now, that being said, AI is just one piece of global macroeconomics that's changing. Uh,
Mhm.
Prices have risen in almost everything in many different businesses. And so it started with manufacturing back in the early 1900s, and now it's the service industry. America, we are outsourcing even our service jobs to
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
because the labor cost is rising disproportionate to what the market's going to pay
yeah, yeah,
provide
yeah.
these services. And whether it's my industry, which is agency consulting, or you look at fast food, look at the challenges McDonald's is having, for example. They're trying to use AI to take orders, or they're having offshore people actually at the drive-through take the order, and just
Yeah, yeah,
so every business is going through some degree of disruption, and trying to figure out how to get its business model in line with where the world's going now.
yeah.
And AI plays an important role, but I think it does get overhyped. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw the market, like yesterday, or I mean, tech's getting killed, at least the big guys, because
Mhm.
now everyone's saying, well, you guys spent billions on AI over the last 24 months. There's not much there. And
Yeah.
it's not, and as with all the marketing hype, the reality is the Gen AI component in large language models legitimately got people excited. But that by in and of itself is only one sliver of what AI is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the excitement over the chat GPTs and of the world, has not translated yet into sustainable, scalable business success that most companies can use. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not a ton of investment going in. There is. I mean, billions and billions of dollars are going into tech companies and startups and all kinds of things. And yes, companies are investing in some tools, like at Jasper, or they're building their own private LLMs and they're doing some of those things. But we're still a world away from revenue technology and the infrastructure we have of truly having it AI enabled and embedded so it's working much smarter.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the next true innovative leap over the next 2 to 3 years.
That's very interesting. Of course, as new disruptive technology comes in, people start to experiment with it, and how it actually returns. Return on investment is yet to be seen. But I think one of the things that we are doing is combining multiple technologies, because as you said, like AI is just one tiny sliver of it. So when you combine it with other technologies, it becomes much more powerful. Well, let me get back to your previous experience. So sounds like that experience in the restaurant industry was quite foundational for you, like just dealing with customers face to face, understanding the importance of relationships. Will that be fair to say, like that was quite formative for you earlier on?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that was definitely a formidable experience. And so I think I had a big impact on my career. Both my parents in the early days were teachers, but then they both moved into sales. And they would take me to sales conferences with them, and I'd sit in the back seat. And this is really dating myself. They had an 8-track cassette player in their car, but they would play Zig Ziglar and Dennis Waitley and all these motivational speakers and listen to them. And I got to go to their trade shows and conferences, and I'd walk around and see all these people. They take me on calls because back then they were both working. They couldn't even afford babysitting sometimes, so I would go. But it was awesome, and I loved it because that's also when I love this world. I love being able to communicate with people, talk to different people, engage, solve business problems. So that was a big influence too.
So that's interesting. Like, I have 2 sons, and a lot of people worry as parents that our kids are more like entitled and more pampered and kind of far off from the real world. So how do you address that? Like, you have kids, I'm assuming. Like, how do you instill those kind of qualities in them today?
Well, I mean, I think it's an overgeneralization. I mean, I still think it comes down to parenting, and you have to pick your own style. I mean, if you asked any of the 3 of our kids, I mean, my wife and I are incredibly strict, very conservative. And in a way, it's kind of funny because I was absolutely a rebel child, and everything I could do to get into trouble, I probably I mean, I never really stole and got into violence or whatever, but go to my parties and do things I shouldn't have done and push boundaries on curfew, stuff like that, and then that was just difficult in school. I was always bored, never wanted to listen to my teachers. And so I always get, Jeff's really smart, but he really needs to focus and stop causing trouble. So, I mean, in those ways, I mean, our kids are probably very much like my wife, the antithesis of, that, but they're structured and well-grounded. So look, I think it's not up to me to tell parents how to raise their kids. I mean, any parent will tell you raising a kid is a full-time job in and of itself. It's a passion. And you're always figuring it out as you go along. There isn't like really one textbook that's going to tell you how to do things perfectly. So look, we just keep communicating, and things go through phases. I mean, I'm quite confident at one time or another, or even now, we piss our kids off for one thing or another. But I also know there's a lot of love there, and we just work hard on guiding them down the right path. And I'm really proud with how Shri and I have raised our kids. I mean, they're all 3 outstanding young adults, and they're all going to contribute to the world in meaningful ways.
No, that's awesome. My point was, as you see, because obviously you have a huge you have a unique vantage point of seeing the industry go through multiple transitions. As you said, internet, smartphone, now AI. Like the world that you see tomorrow, obviously selling and marketing will never go out of style. I mean, that's what humans will do. So how will this generation, in terms of how little of a human connection they have while growing up,
In that
in the
regard,
next.
yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately technology has crippled this generation as much as it's enabled them.
Mhm,
Something to hide behind. Social media gives you such a false read of
mhm,
who
mhm.
people really are, what their issues are.
Yeah.
And it amplifies messaging in
Mhm.
negative
Yeah,
ways, more
exactly.
often positive. So I think that ends up delaying our kids' abilities to develop that maturity, how to
Mhm,
meaningful relationships. And so in that regard, I think parents have to work harder, and
mhm,
we have to be smarter about how technology can and cannot help our kids, scale. But again, that's one of those, we have some friends that don't do anything, and we have others that, are counting the amount of minutes or hours you can be on the
mhm.
TV or your devices and everything in between. I mean, like I said, I don't know that there's one right way, but I do
Yeah.
know that this younger generation um, has been hurt by mobile devices, social media, more than I think it's helped them. There are
Uh-huh.
more kids now that are dealing with mental health issues, stress, and it's not just technology. It's I think, as parents, in our efforts to make it a better place for them and trying to give them the best, we're putting pressures on them that we never had when we were there.
Mhm,
So, for
mhm,
example, seventh and eighth graders now at the middle school are taking high school AP classes. Why? Because
mhm.
parents want their kids to get into a top school, and it's not enough that they have to start when they're a freshman or sophomore. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Middle school. I mean, what's next? They're going to start taking it in kindergarten. I mean, it's
Yeah.
insane. And I don't ever remember spending hours on homework a night. That's probably in part because I didn't care, and I didn't. But
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
the same time, I mean, my homework was on in school, and then my kids and my friends and I were out playing sports and doing all kinds of stuff at night.
Yeah.
Didn't worry about it. But I mean, all three of our kids, hours of homework a night, staying out 10, 11 o'clock. This on top of their school activities, running here, running there, and my wife and I are doing double duty, getting them everywhere. So I think it's hard. They've had less time to be kids. They've had less time to just enjoy their youth and relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not their fault. It's ours. Because we're the adults that created the conditions for them. So I'm hopeful that they'll be able to change that trend, with their children. Um,
Mhm.
I don't want to say that we've done a complete disservice. I mean, I think there's good things too that our generations contributed, but when you have a chance to sort of look at it in context, it's yeah, collectively we probably could have done some different things along the way.
Mhm. Okay. Well, let's hope everything works out in their favor. Now, coming back to your career, like as you went through your career and transition from industries, what are some of the key lessons you learned, or maybe you made some mistakes which led to some important lessons that you may want to share?
Oh gosh, I could probably write a book with all the
Yeah,
mistakes. Uh,
which you have already a couple of
There's,
them.
I did. I think one thing I wish I would have joined some of the CEO groups earlier in my career,
Mhm.
because I probably would have made less. I mean, in the beginning, I was so trying to figure it out on my own, and with Sheree and with Deb, and I mean, it was fun, but we also probably wasted cycles, spent money on things that we didn't need to, took longer to get to a decision that we would have known. So I mean, if I could go back and tap my younger self on the shoulder and say, hey, seek out more expert guidance, talk to people, listen a little
Mhm.
bit more before you pull the trigger. I think in those early years, it was more of a fire ready aim kind of situation. So I
Mhm.
think that's probably one big lesson I've learned. Um, managing money in a growing business is also really challenging.
Yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah.
trying to build up reserves. You're also trying to spend to grow. You're also trying to figure out how you're going to survive. And then,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just managing all those things. I mean, that's an ongoing lesson, that you have to learn. Um, Look, I think like all things, pride can get in the way, ego can get in the way. Um, there were times when I probably let that get in the way of. I was more concerned about being right and winning, versus the relationship and thinking about the people and learning how to managing and leading are two different things. And the mantle of the CEO, it's hard and it, it can be challenging and lonely. And really, the only other people that truly understand are other CEOs. But to my partners, the vendors, our employees, it's really about addressing them individually and how to lead and motivate people one at a time. Communicating clearly. I think I was still learning how to do it better, but I could see all everything in my head clear as day. Here to there, I've already solved it in 5 seconds. Well, that's great, and it doesn't mean that the people around me can't get it, but it's unreasonable to expect them to get it. Whether breaking it down to chunks and milestones and explaining things multiple times. And it's not because they're stupid. It's because it's just absorbing communication and someone that's an operator and someone has to put something into a process or build something to scale is going to ask different questions and think about things in a different rigor and way than I would be thinking about it, strategically. So, I think that's one of the hardest lessons I'm still learning, like how to communicate effectively.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a skill that we always can improve upon. It's a lifelong thing, for sure. Now, moving forward, you are getting heavily involved in AI. How are you adopting AI? What, let's say if another CEO came to you or an entrepreneur came to you, what will you advise them in terms of how they can adopt AI? What are you doing? What is your outlook on the future of business with AI?
Well, I think AI is going to have a very positive role in business, and I'm not just talking about Gen AI, whether it's machine learning or deep learning. There's predictive models. there's lots of aspects to AI that will help us scale and be better. But specifically, we're using AI a lot for sales and marketing. We're helping, for proposal writing, meeting summarization, helping us get to our assessments and our deliverables faster. We're going through our sales and marketing and our delivery processes, and one by one, we're adding AI to it. We're building custom GPTs on things that we would do normally day in and day out, but we're now taking our artifacts, our processes, and we're building out things. And so it's still us. It's all of our IP, how we would solve it, but AI helps us do it much faster, which delivers value to our client faster. It used to be, oh, geez, we're going to do an assessment and that could take 60 or 90 days. Now we can do it in minutes. And so that's real value to a client, because it's really not about the assessment itself. It's about what you're going to tell the client to do with the assessment, what are the next steps and actions. So I think what CEOs should be doing is not just broadly thinking, how do I reduce my workforce and make things more efficient? Sure, if you get more efficient and productive because you're using AI, yes, I suppose you can look at your labor force, but it's way more than that, right? It's not just about trying to save money. It's about how do you scale? How do you develop your revenue models? And how do you build better relationships with your clients because of the data, because of what AI can actually allow you to do, versus just looking at that quick light switch. So if I was a CEO, I'd be going through all of my business processes in sales, marketing, IT, finance, HR, operations, and saying, of all these, if we AI enable these, what business impact would we have? What KPIs should we come up with? And then just start sequencing them, and then take one a month and just start knocking them out.
That's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. I think obviously a lot of people are a little bit behind on this, or they're waiting and watching, but I think the sooner they take action, the better off they will be. And now I want to touch upon this fascinating conversation we had when we met in New York. I just want to preface this by saying, obviously this is not going to be about religion, but I have, a lot of appreciation about a research study you did about different religions. And if you can speak to that and maybe put it in the context of marketing, rather than the religious talk.
Because for years I've been fascinated by this topic of how do different religions use marketing, to both recruit and serve their congregations and their communities. And for years, I just always wanted to do it. And in my mind, I was writing the chapters and building it. And then, last year I finally sat down and I really finished my research and wrote it, at least in the first draft. So what I do is I'm looking at 15 of the world's major religions, including some of the newer ones. And I also threw in a few cults and things. And I wanted to understand, okay, before there was digital, before there was tech, what did religion do? Was it word-of-mouth marketing? Was it newspapers? Was it articles? How did they apply it? How did that help them? How did it hurt them? And of course, the consultant in me wanted to do more of an analysis. So I built some maturity models and SWOT analysis and things where I'm kind of evaluating not the merits of the religion itself. I stay away from that. The book isn't about theocracy at all. It's really about, as a subject, how does a given religious following leverage marketing over time through different channels to be able to reach and serve its community. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually going back through now and cleaning up and rewriting it. And the only reason I didn't release it last year is because we've been doing a lot of work in AI, and it's such a different topic. And it was really about, it was my personal passion project. It really doesn't have anything to do with my company. And I was just worried it would create confusion in the marketplace. But yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm hoping actually I can get it to market by the end of this year.
Yeah, no, I think it's a powerful concept. I've thought about it a lot on my own as well. But I would really like you to maybe, was there any surprise you found during this research? Was there any nugget you found that, because at the end of the day, it is marketing and sales again. So something that people can take away and say, maybe, it has worked for a lot of religions around the world and they can apply it in their life or business.
No, I guess I wasn't overly surprised by the final conclusions, but how each religion used some of them, and then going back to marketing. So just for example, you really can't compare, let's say, Christianity and Judaism. They're very different religions, even though, that. But the goal of each religion is slightly different. So in Christianity, part of the tenets is to prophesize, to go forth, to spread the word. Word of mouth marketing is since the earliest days. That was a big tenet. Judaism, from the earliest days, which is much more inclusive if you sought them out. They would welcome anybody, but they weren't trying to push the envelope. So if you think about that from a brand, perspective and messaging, what you're trying to do and how you're going to do it, they're two different things. Again, one is not better than the other. It's just, so I think in part of going through the analysis, the way you're just simply measuring success, because if you remember at the dinner table, everyone's like, so what's the best religion? And I'm like, I wouldn't answer it because it's not that simple. It's not, you have to go look back. What were the goals of each religion in using marketing in the first place? Then you have to measure the efficacy against that goal versus just saying, well, obviously this religion is bigger than the other one, so they must be. That's not really that's not a good direct correlation. The number of people practicing a religion has nothing to do with how well the religion in of itself used marketing.
No, that's fascinating. I hope you finish that book and release it. It's a fascinating topic. And now, before I let you go, can you tell us if people want to reach out and work with you or just connect with you, what is the best way to do that?
Hit our website, pedowitzgroup.com. Email me, jeff@pedowitzgroup.com. I'm also up on LinkedIn. So we're always love meeting great people and engaging, and we love what we do.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much for being on the show, sharing your experience and wisdom. We'll put those links in the show notes so that people can reach out easily.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.